And welcome back to another video between HamburgerSasu and Terror. And I'm gonna pick up where I left off last time around. We left last time around after game number 3, where Terror was up over Barcode Q, also known as HamburgerSasu. He's playing the blue Terran right here on the bottom left of the map, up against Terror, who's on the middle left of the map, who's once again playing the Protoss, the 4th time he's been on Protoss in this series specifically. HamburgerSasu absolutely loves playing Zerg and Terran against Protoss. It's what he does most of the time. I'd say about 70% of the time he's playing Terran or Zerg. Whereas most players on fastest map, at least in Korea, like to play Protoss because it's pretty much the strongest race on fastest map, so it gives you an advantage. But HamburgerSasu, being as good as he is, believes he can take home more wins on Zerg or Terran than his enemies can take wins off him with Protoss. But in this series specifically, I've been using the word specifically a lot. In this series specifically, Terror has won 2 games, 2 Protoss versus Zergs, has lost a single Protoss versus Terran. So that's already a pretty impressive feat from HamburgerSasu, because Terror has a pretty damn beastly Protoss. And this game around, he's going for a very early gas. So that means he's going for a very early Cybernetics core. He's either going for Dragoons or going for Dark Templars. Looks like he's going for Dragoons because he's added on a second gateways, and we'll be seeing a Cybernetics core coming out after. I gotta admit, the gateways are a little bit early. These two are a little bit early because now it means he cannot get that. Well, you can get that Cybernetics core down just in time. We've got that on the way. I still think these two are a little bit early. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen this build done by a player named 90057, which I believe is one of the other usernames used by 458. But I might be wrong. But I've seen this build done by that player specifically, and it's pretty damn strong. But you do need pretty damn awesome Dragoon Micro, Dragoon Control to pull this off. But on the other hand, the Terran needs pretty damn awesome Control Marines and really good choices, because you're going to need a bunker here in your front if you want to survive this, and you got to keep repairing that bunker and get your tanks out pretty early too. So it's imperative that you scout the Protoss, and it looks like HamburgerSasu is being very greedy here by only scouting the chokes. It's going to be a while before he even finds it. He's not even aware that Terror is here and doing this build specifically. That's going to hurt him. He's going for a Citadel of Adun. He doesn't have Dragoon range on the way yet. He's making 3 Dragoons though. But I'm a little puzzled by exactly what he's doing. So he's not going for Dragoon range. And Dragoon range is imperative. It is like the most important part of this build that I thought he was going to do. But he's not doing it. But it is very important that you get Dragoon range for this build. So he got those 3 Dragoons out. He accidentally pulled his probes out of his minerals. That's going to slow him down just a tad. That's good for HamburgerSasu. Small micro mistake there. Citadel of Adun is finished. Still no Dragoon range on the way. There is Templar's Archive. I think he's trying to throw HamburgerSasu off there by going for the Dragoons. He's pulling back his Dragoons to his entrance now because he knows that a couple of Marines are out on the map. And he doesn't want those Marines to enter his base. But yeah, I think he's trying to throw off HamburgerSasu by showing the Dragoons, which would make HamburgerSasu believe that he's going for Dragoon range and a mass Dragoon push here on the front. So as we can see, HamburgerSasu already throwing down his bunker. But HamburgerSasu knows something is off because he doesn't see the Dragoons here in his entrance. I assume he knows something is off. Factory not yet on the way. He's got Marine range on the way, as he should. Pulling more SCVs to his choke so he can keep repairing the bunker. But Dark Templars are gonna be on the way, and there's an engineering bay, so he knows something is up. There's a fire barrack being made here on the top side. Gonna lift that over and land a barrack there, and perhaps stim a fire bat onto those minerals there. Dragoon's still there in the choke, just making sure nothing enters. He's not even showing his. He's not showing his hands, that's for sure. But I do think he's showing his hands in the sense that he's being passive. HamburgerSasu knows that with the build that with the Dragoons that he saw, that the Protoss is going to be pretty aggressive. Factories on the way. Things are about to finish. Dark Templars have finished. There is no turret here in the entrance. Turret is now being made. Wait, no, it's a depot. It's gonna build more depots there all around. He doesn't have a scan either yet. No turrets inside his base. Dark Templars walk in. Turret is right here on the way. He's gonna ignore the SCV making the turret because he's gonna chase down those Marines deeper into the base because he doesn't need to kill that turret there on the front. There's no turrets here in the back. Turrets, they're all being constructed there. Dark Templars walking in. Marines are being very weak. He's not focusing on the turret. He's trying to take down SCVs. Marines staying alive, but those Marines will not be able to take down those Dark Templars. Dark Templars now getting clipped into the SCVs. One of them is getting stuck under a building. Great job of clipping those Dark Templars into the SCVs and preventing pretty much the damage that he could have dealt really well. Great move by him. There's no units here in the front, so these Dark Templars can still keep walking into the base. More Dark Templars are on the... Nope, no more Dark Templars are on the way. He's researching Storm now. He's just gonna clear out this front here with these Dark Templars. One Dark Templar gets pulled into the base. But there's a Firebat running in here. Firebat cannot reach the probes because he pretty much walled this entire section off. It's like an impenetrable fortress for Firebats. Firebats cannot go through. Probes and Marines can walk through this little portion here. Zerglings probably can as well. This is like a very chaotic base, but I do like it in the sense that it serves its purpose. Reaver finished up. Shuttle gonna pick up the Reaver. Dark Templars now clearing out the depots here in the front, but HamburgerSasu is not supply star because he still has enough depots here in the back. A command center there as well. Scan is on the way. Adding on more barracks. He's got a factory finished up, but no siege mode, no tank out on the map because he cannot afford it. Thanks to that little bit of harassment from the misdirection at the start there. It's a good game plan from Terror. Terror now moving in. Dark Templar, 2 Zealots. And the Reaver in there. He's going to try to focus on the shuttle. He gets a shot off with... Ooh, he killed pretty much all of HamburgerSasu's SCVs there. HamburgerSasu being very greedy, thinking he could snipe the shuttle, but he was unable to snipe the shuttle, then unable to snipe the Reaver before he could get a shot off. So he got a shot off, and he's now pretty much on 16 SCVs in total, 44 for Terror. So Terror's got a huge lead here, and there's no choke here for Terror. There's a Templar there in the mix. He's waiting in the choke, ready to storm units. Units are now being produced en masse. Mostly Zealots. You can just afford to, like, just run him over through the front. He's gonna get some side stack though. So he just threw down a bunch of pylons there in the choke. Doesn't matter where he throws them down, he just needs them to be there. So you can keep massing units. And Marines now stimming up. Gonna try to take down the Zealot and the Templar there. Templar does not get a... Templar gets a storm off, in fact. Great reaction from Terror there. Making sure the Templar doesn't die in vain. Notices it just in time. Shuttle here on the bottom side. Shuttle here on the top side too. No, oh, there's the shuttle finishing up, but the shuttle is not yet relevant. It's gonna fly to drop in right here over the bottom of the map. Bottom of the base, flies in deeper. HamburgerSasu responds, tries to snipe the shuttle. Templar gets on the low ground, but Templar immediately gets stormed and taken down. Templar gets shut down by the siege tanks. HamburgerSasu now microing back towards his tanks, making sure Terror cannot go in. Terror knows that there are tanks there, so he decides to pull back and regroup with more units. 51 probes now in total. Another drop has been loaded up. Maybe this one will hit. There's a Templar in there. Maybe he's going to fly it in from the front. Maybe he's going to pick something up. He's going to go for the front of the tank. He's going to try to storm down these Marines with the Templars. He's got 2 Templars in the mix. The first Templar gets a storm off, only kills 3 Marines. Second Templar has not yet stormed. Marines are pretty much balled up. He gets a great storm off, kills another 5 Marines there. Marines now have to pull back towards the tanks. Tanks are... Well, he's got a pretty huge portion here in the top corner of HamburgerSasu's base, for which he can walk in through, and he decides to do so. He gets a great engage there. Shuttle is flying closer. There's no storm on those Templars. He kills and cleans out the tanks there, though. He kills the Dragoons there as well. Marines going down. There's only a couple of Marines left. Dragoons go down, but more units have already been balled up in the front of his choke. They're gonna just walk up the same path. They're gonna try to go through the same path. There's a Templar in the mix there. Templar doesn't have storm. One of those Templars that was already there from the previous fight. He takes down the SCV, prevents the bunker. Marines stimming up, Marines chasing, Marines pulling back because they cannot chase or out of the tank range. 2 tanks again sieged up in between those turrets and barracks there. Terror has added on a lot of gateways, adding on more gateways. He's pretty big now, 57 probes. He's quite a low probe count, but he's using it very effectively, making sure all of his minerals are immediately spent and units immediately sent out. And he's loaded up another Reaver into his shuttle. He's going to land that and try to get another shot off on those workers. Templar now in the mix, almost back on 75 energy. Maybe he's going to wait for 75 energy. Maybe he's going to go in now. No, he goes in right now. Gets a great angle on those Marines and the tanks. Shuttle flies in. Shuttle lands on the low ground. Reaver doesn't get a shot off, but the units there are going to get cleared out. Templar gets taken down by HamburgerSasu. Really great, absolutely great target selection there. He survives another wave, but another wave is going to come in immediately. The wave's going to focus on the bunkers there. HamburgerSasu is still alive. Manages to buy himself time. Great target selection. Great micro from HamburgerSasu there. Limiting the amount of damage he takes from Terror's attack there. Terror is streaming out more units on 150 supply. That's double the supply of... It's even more than double the supply of HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu has been kept very, very small. He's going to need depots very soon if he's going to be able to keep on expanding to his base. But I think this might be the killing blow right here. The liver blow, so to speak. You won't be able to land a counter punch because this one is just going to walk in there and clean out his entire mass because he's got pretty much nothing at all left inside of his base. A couple of Marines with a medic there, Stim. He built up a nice wall, but I think he can pretty much just walk past the wall because the wall has not been finished up there. Gets a great storm of all those Marines. Marines go down. Dragoons and Zealots now focusing on the tanks. Tanks are completely unprotected by the Marines. Marines spawning from the barracks now, but the bunkers there in the front doing quite some work, but they're definitely not strong enough because he's got upgrades on those Dragoons. One level attack, and HamburgerSasu leaves the game, doesn't call the GG, and Terror now ahead of HamburgerSasu once more, 3-1. Terror played quite a nice Protoss there, although I do think it pretty much was completely facilitated by HamburgerSasu doing lazy scouting just the chokes, meaning that he didn't see what Terror was up to, and never saw what Terror was up to, because Terror then places Dragoons inside of his choke, keeping HamburgerSasu out there. Well, that's a great choice from Terror. And I'll admit, HamburgerSasu did really well in staying alive, but you can't stay alive forever if you're going to be kept that small and contained by the Protoss. Protoss just keeps ramping up, and the Protoss eventually just rolls you over like a steam truck, or steamroller, or road roller. And yeah, you just roll over and die as you get rolled over. So yeah, I'm gonna load game number 5 up, and let's see how that one plays out. And game number 5 is on the way, and we are returning to another match in this series between HamburgerSasu, who's playing on the name Barcode Q, and he's playing as the White Terran on the middle left of the map. Whereas we have Terror, his opponent, who has so far proven to be superior. Although it is debatable how much you can call a player winning as Protoss against Zerg or against Terran superior. But nonetheless, he's played a very interesting Protoss. So yeah, he's proven himself to be superior so far. Although, yeah, he's proven himself to be a worthy adversary for HamburgerSasu there. HamburgerSasu has not been able to take off more than one game off of Terror's Protoss on this fastest map series. And let's see if he can do it this time around. If he can bring the score up to 3-2 in favor of Terror. He's gonna have to take a win here, otherwise this series is pretty much done. So I don't see him recovering mentally, because he's kind of one of those players who takes a lot of pride in his ability. And getting beaten 4 times out of 5, oh, that would hurt his pride a lot. And I hope he can keep up his mentality, his mental game, and bring back this series into his favor. Though it was never quite in his favor. Terror has been leading right from the start. That was to be expected, given the first 2 games were Protoss versus Zerg, which, statistically speaking, is about an 80% win rate for Protoss on the fastest map. So that's kind of skewered, but nonetheless, both players played really well. 3 barracks and 4 gateways. 4 gateway start is extremely rare amongst the elite of the elite fastest map players for Protoss. In a 1 versus 1, in 2 versus 2, they do it a little bit more often. In 3 versus 3, they do it all the time, but in 1 versus 1, you rarely see this happening because most Terran players can micro so well that your 4-gate build will yield no results, pretty much. But he's going to go for it nonetheless. He's going to go for it. He believes he's got the chops that HamburgerSasu doesn't. But I believe HamburgerSasu has quite the chops because his micro-macro is, in my opinion, one of the very, very best. And in this series so far, Terror has pretty much won every single game off of pure brain play alone. And not so much his mechanical play, although he does have great mechanical play. HamburgerSasu mechanical play is, in my opinion, top 3 on fastest map in the entire world. Well, that says a lot. Because there's absolutely insane players on there, like Brain, there's Minchol, there's even like Mong, there's Flash as well. Flash is also pretty amazing at fastest map. Alright, a little bit of touch and feel, back and forth, fishing for an opening, fishing for a mistake, and the first mistake is made by HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu responds a little bit too late. Those Zealots get a great surround of on those Marines, even got to catch a couple of Marines out there. It only ends up killing 2 Marines. Marines pull back to the bunker. A couple of Marines have already entered the bunker. He's going to micro in circles around that bunker. He splits up his Marines. Zealots now have to split up and follow those Marines around. He keeps walking those Marines in circles. Eventually, they get out of there. Zealots also decide to get out of there because they have been taking too much damage from the Marines in the bunker. HamburgerSasu now once again attack and engaging the fight. Terror takes the fight. Terror deals a little damage to the Marines, but no Marines go down. All Marines are still alive. Zealot has gone down there in the mix, but that's some great movements from both players overall, because only a single Zealot went down in an entire exchange where they just kept chasing each other around, and only 2 Marines went down. That's absolutely amazing micro from both players. He tries to catch his SCV. SCV manages to leave the base. SCV is going to scout, and Terra now has thrown up a choke. He went for very early gas. There's a 7x core, and there's already a Citadel of Doom 4 minutes into the game on a 4-gateway build. I've never seen this done before. Zealots here, still fishing for some damage, still fishing for an out-of-position unit, but HamburgerSasu has started up his fire bats. SCVs entered the base before those cannons could finish, so that's a great timing for HamburgerSasu being able to get himself information. There's a +1 Nexus has come down for Terror. Terror now pulling back his Zealots as he tried to go in and fish for a fight, but those fire bats are absolutely tearing through those Zealots, and the Zealots have taken a lot of damage from those fire bats, and now those Marines can just clean them up and chase them down. And they're going to walk into the corner by himself. Time. Maybe he's going to go down. HamburgerSasu overshoots himself into the corner. And, oh, he is doing something I don't entirely agree with. He's going to the front. Although there's still a couple of Marines here in the back. Marines eventually do take out the Zealots, but at the cost of 2 SCV lives. Definitely not worth it. He shouldn't have sent these Marines up there. Could have saved 2 SCVs. Because losing something is always worse than losing nothing at all. And he could have prevented that from happening. Let's take a look at Terror. Terror has his Templars archive up. There is no engineering bay out for HamburgerSasu, so the Dark Templars that are on the way are going to wreak absolute havoc on HamburgerSasu's unit count. Because he also does not have a scan. Well, scan is now on the way. That's great. But Dark Templars will finish before the scan finishes. Going to take a little while longer before the scan is finished, but HamburgerSasu goes in, plans on taking down this choke here, takes down the choke. Zealots pull back. Zealots waiting for the Dark Templars. Has the scan finished? Scan is not finished, but it looks like HamburgerSasu is going to stim his Marines down into the corner away from the Dark Templars, so the Dark Templars going to deal damage, and he bought himself enough time for the scan to come down. He gets the scan. Dark Templars go down, but now there is no detection for the next wave of Dark Templars that's going to come out. But the next wave of Dark Templars is not out yet, because Terror made a wave of the Zealots first. Which means that Terror is going to lose these gateways here in the front. Possibly lose this robotic facility too. There's a shuttle on the way. Shuttle will finish before it goes down. No. Yeah, shuttle finishes before... No! That was like a 1/10 of a second before the shuttle would finish. So, Shuttle doesn't finish, Reaver doesn't get cancelled, Shuttle doesn't get cancelled either. Now he's making turrets here in the front because he did finish his engineering bay. Dark Templar tries to go in, but Dark Templar sees that his turret is almost finished, he wouldn't be able to take it down. Second Dark Templar finished, third Dark Templar finished as well, which means that HamburgerSasu now has to stay within the range of the turret and cannot advance much further, which gives Terror the opportunity to add on more gateways. Oh, he goes in anyway and loses 6-7 Marines to those Dark Templars. Second scan is only 4-3 energy away. He's got a factory finished. He's got 5 barracks pumping. He's pumping very quickly, very fast. He's playing on very high APM. Both players are playing on very high APM. And it looks like HamburgerSasu pulls back to his base because he knows that Terror has been adding on a lot of gateways. And he knows he's got a Templar's Archive, so he might even have Storm. And he's probably making a robotic facility in the back there as well. Which means Terror's going to have a huge mass very soon. So HamburgerSasu decides to pull back to his choke, where he is safer, and he wouldn't be losing those units there. HamburgerSasu now splitting Marines up to the sides to get himself vision as an anti-drop measure. He cancels the depot because he knows he saw the Dark Templars moving inside of the invisibility, so he cancels the depot. Smart move, only loses the SCV, but still has another SCV there, so he starts up another depot. And is going to finish that wall in the near future. Shuttle is finished for Terror. He's got shuttle speed on the way, Storm on the way as well. And there's 2 Templars queued up. He's got a lot of Zealots that are queued up and finished as well. 45 probes in total now, up against 42 from HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu is now on 2 command centers extra. Both have scanned, so he can keep information on his opponent. Which also leads me to believe he knew that the shuttle was being loaded up. Now adding more factories, now starts. Turrets is on the side because he knows the shuttle is coming because he scanned it for being loaded up. Repositioning his Marines all around his base, but the shuttle is going to fly in before the turrets finish. But I think that HamburgerSasu knows that the shuttle is bound to be entering. Shuttle goes in or against the bottom corner of the map where it is hardest for the Marines to focus on it. HamburgerSasu stims in. He takes down the Templar too. Takes down the shuttle, takes down the Templar, takes down the Zealot. Does not lose a turret, does not lose any units, does not lose SCVs either. So the Templars drop here. I'm not sure if it can storm the minerals from up here. Perhaps it would have stormed the... Well, it could have probably stormed the minerals there, so that was a good save. Focusing down the Templar before it could storm. HamburgerSasu now supply stack. It's going to have to add on more depots, but it's just going to ramp up slowly. Dropship has finished. It's going to load up 2 tanks. It's going to go for the tank drop. Drop number 2 here being loaded up for Terror. Filling all those shuttles up with Zealots and Templars. There's a Corsair in the mix there as well. Adding on more starports here in the top side and a bunch of pylons just for supply's sake. 3 roboticses, 2 more forges for ground force upgrades, shields and armor. He's got weapons on the way. Arbitr's Tribunal is already on the way as well, pretty early into the game. Drop flies in, drop gets unloaded, he takes down, he snipes the shuttles. No Templars have been dropped on the floor, so just a couple of Zealots there, cleaning out a couple of Marines. HamburgerSasu prevents any damage from happening to his mineral line, stays alive in that sense, buys himself a lot of time to ramp up, because now it's gonna take a while before Terror deals some damage, and Terror just got hit by a huge tank drop, which I pretty much entirely missed, except for the animation of the tank dying. But I do know that Terror had about 55 probes, and is now down to 23 probes in total. Huge lead that HamburgerSasu just bought himself, preventing damage to his own SCVs, but doing damage to Terror's probe count. That's gonna propel him forward over Terror by a lot, because now it means he can just build on without feeling threatened all that much. Because it's all gonna come down to this drop here, and that's just a single shuttle, and I don't see the single shuttle making its way through all the way to the SCVs here and getting a storm off on HamburgerSasu's workers. We should put him back and put Terror back into the game. But I don't think that's going to happen. HamburgerSasu already responding, already takes down the shuttle. The shuttle even dies just to the turret there. And a single Marine shot. HamburgerSasu now starts building more buildings onto his base. Factory there. Depots here on the side. Upgrade on the way for his tanks. Weapons and armor. Terror back on 33 probes. He can only make probes with 2 Nexi. No third Nexi there. It's going to take a while. His supply count is also quite low. I actually think HamburgerSasu can afford to just go for the counterattack here. He does have the information on the size of Terror's base, given that he used his scans to get himself information. These shuttles are empty. Alright, that's interesting. Empty shuttles. He's going to plan on loading them up soon. Maybe he's just going to keep them there in the front. Not sure what the idea behind it is. But the more time HamburgerSasu gets here, the bigger he's going to get. These factories here in the front are meant... I don't think there's room for a machine shop without units getting stuck there. Like just scanning, scouting. Nothing in there, so he... Right, he's just getting information. Rattling the snake a bit. Getting himself information, but there's nothing there. Nothing in those shuttles. So that's kept here on the side as well, just in case HamburgerSasu decides to move out, so we can cash those units out into the middle. Just in case. He's back on 45 probes, 177 supply. Means he's got a lot of units out here on the map. Spread out, ready to attack. Just using this for information gathering because they are empty. He isn't planning on landing a drop anytime soon. Just flying around, threatening to do something. Making sure HamburgerSasu stays focused on the drop and does not attack, does not move out. It's actually kind of smart. Buying himself time by pretending to try to drop, but he's not dropping at all. Gives him some time to rebuild. But it also gives HamburgerSasu time to keep building, because HamburgerSasu now has lifted up his barracks and is replacing the area where he had his barracks with these factories. He's on, that's 12 factories, and there's more room for at least 6 factories here. Probably going to add more factories here as well. You will probably end up on about 20 factories in total, which gives him a lot of production power, mass and power, and he's got the minerals and the income to facilitate it. He's even on 5 command centers now, this entire row here. So even if he does get hit at this point, he can replenish his SCVs very, very rapidly. Terror is waiting for HamburgerSasu to move out so he can get a surround off on his ground forces, but HamburgerSasu is being a patient man, making sure nothing goes wrong, making sure Terror cannot pull off any weird comebacks. Terror on 52 probes, not a high probe count. His base is still very small, which given the context of him losing so many probes is understandable, but it is about time. He should be adding more buildings onto his base, which I think he's gonna do very soon. Well, maybe he has given up. Maybe he's just waiting. Waiting and waiting and waiting. Playing chicken with his opponent. I think he's really banking on getting a surround off. Now he's going to try to mass cannons here on the middle. Maybe he's going to build a bunch of gateways on the middle. Not too sure. But both players are being very passive. And I don't really like the passivity from HamburgerSasu. Because HamburgerSasu had a huge lead build up from hitting the tank drop. And is now not punishing or not pushing. But on the other hand, he is building himself up to become a very, very big scary Terran with huge production capabilities. There's a lot of factories there. 16 factories in total. Starports as well. Upgrades are on pretty good terms as well. He's already on 1-1 and he's got 2-2 on the way for his ground forces and even for his air forces as well. Even though he doesn't have any air forces at all. Aside from these vessels, which do benefit from having that armor. Right, he's making gateways on the middle. He's not making them in his base, he's making them on the middle. So he is finally expanding his production ability. Aside from having a low probe count and quite a low gas count, because he's only mining from 4 gas. He might have to add more gas in the near future. And I don't think he's even got 12 probes mining from the assimilators there. But at least he's building massive amounts of gateways all over the map. Looks like both players are just planning on playing a huge macro mass send game where they're A-moving and microing their units on the middle, fighting against each other. That's their plan. Both players are fully aware of it. And HamburgerSasu believes that he is the superior player in that factor. Maybe he's even giving Terror time on purpose, just to show that he is an absolutely dominant player. More dominant than Terror is. Trying to assert his dominance by giving him time on purpose. He finally does decide to move out here. Killing his bunkers there in the front. Ready to move out and start taking control over this game. But Terror is in a quite terrifying position now because he has become quite big. And there's so many gateways all over the map, and I'm not sure if that's actually enough. I do think HamburgerSasu can take this home right here. So he's got the superior upgrades over Terror. Terror is on 1-1-2 up against 2-2. 2-2 in about 5 seconds. Even his Marines have upgrades, right? 1-1 on those Marines. Right, he actually overshoots a little bit and he gets cut out. But he pulls back just in time before any of his units go down. He's going to regroup, ball up inside of his choke. But there's a lot of units here in the back. Actually, it doesn't look like he has all that many units, in my honest opinion. So this surround from Terror might actually deal significant amounts of damage. Terror now pulling his units together. And he goes for the frontal attack. And he might actually get a great surround off on HamburgerSasu here. Or Barco Q, if you want to call him that. There's so many units coming out for Terror here. And given the fact he's only got 56 probes, gives him a great ability to get a surround off here on those tanks and get a huge spread, limiting siege tank damage. And allowing him to get a great spread for those Dragoons. There's a drop here on the bottom side as well, still unloaded. It's the same drop from earlier. Had to use the fake drop and keep HamburgerSasu on his toes. But a lot of siege tanks now finishing up. He's got so many factories. That's 21 factories in total from which he can produce. He's just building a lot of vultures. Ready to place down mines. Yeah, there's the mines. Tanks sieging up there in the backs. Tanks here on the side as well. Terror's attack eventually does fall flat, but it did clear out all the units there in the middle. But having all that marine count cleared up and exchanged with vultures is beneficial for HamburgerSasu. Units coming out from all over the map for Terror. Terror is getting a great surround off on the map here. But HamburgerSasu just has to pull back, siege up his tanks, and deal significant amounts of damage to those Zealots and Dragoons. Dragoons being able to shoot from afar. And actually, he's not going to be able to get in there. Because tanks sieging up in the back there as well. Tanks sieging up there in the top side as well. Dropping a couple of Dragoons on top of those vultures. But the tanks are so spread out here for HamburgerSasu that unloading units on top of the tanks is not dealing all that much damage. Tanks continue to clear out ground forces from Terror. More tanks finishing up, sieging up, vultures moving out as well. And there's units being unloaded in between those factories. Great move. But the move itself winds up yielding no results whatsoever because HamburgerSasu is doing a great job of keeping these units at bay here. Arbiter in the mix now as well. Terror just crapping out units so quick. He's always on 200, which is to be expected with this absolutely stupendous amount of gateways he's got on the map here. Fight here in the front is slowly progressing in Terror's favor, but HamburgerSasu is balling up more and more tanks in between his factories there on the sides, which eventually does force Terror's units out of his base. Which also means that HamburgerSasu can soon start pushing out of his base and go for the counter push on Terror. Terror really has to start landing drops now on HamburgerSasu because HamburgerSasu is really rich. And he's got absolutely insane production capability. He's made 7 dropships. Gonna load those dropships up with a bunch of tanks and go for another tank drop on Terror's main. Take down the main, take down the probes. Both of them at the same time. Fight in the front here is still happening, but it's pretty much just units being A-moved in. And a little bit of micro going on as well. But given there's so many siege tanks, he's not gonna get much done. I'm not feeling this for Terror. Terror is trying his hardest, but he's not trying the right things. But it is understandable because there's so much pressure on Terror here. Because giving HamburgerSasu even more time just puts the game in favor of HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu, it's just too good. Unloading tanks on the hill now, which should make it absolutely impossible for Terror to keep going with the ground forces. He's either going to have to land shuttles there on the hill or transition into carriers, but does not have the gas to transition into carriers. So this game is pretty much done and over. Because it's going to take way too long for Terror to get his gas up to the point where he can start going for carriers. He's got shuttles finished up there. He's going to load those shuttles up and land units on the hills there. But the game is so much in favor of HamburgerSasu that I don't think... I mean, HamburgerSasu is still inside of his base, but just economically speaking and production ability-wise, HamburgerSasu is in a huge lead. He's made 6 raids. He's going to use those raids to escort the vessels and the dropships into Terror's base. He's going to aim for the Nexus. But first, let's look at this fight here happening in the front. Dragoon's running into some mines. Dragoon's getting taken down by the siege tanks on the hills. Units get landed on the hills. Hills do get cleared out by storms and zealots being dropped there. So great move from Terror. Manages to take down those hills, but a huge drop's going to fly in here. Gets an EMP off on not one, but on both Nexuses. Unloads his tanks on the low ground. Sieges them up. Raids helping out. Terror leaves. Calls GG before he even loses his main. HamburgerSasu pulls off a stellar campy game, which is pretty much the example of how to pull off a campy game. At some point in there, you gotta try to land a tank drop, because if you do land a tank drop, you get such a huge lead and you buy yourself so much time over the Protoss, where it becomes a race against the clock for the Protoss, because the Protoss is now the one hurting, and Terran is then the one having the reins in his hands to decide the future of the game. Just as we witnessed. And HamburgerSasu pulls off a great game. And there's more games in the series. And I'm actually going to do another one right now, right here. I'm just going to pause it. And load up game number 6. And just to remind everyone, the score is 3-2 in favor of Terror. HamburgerSasu is behind by 1 game, but has managed to win 2 Terran versus Protoss games over Terror, which is quite amazing. Although Terror pretty much got himself this game because he got a lot of time from HamburgerSasu to rebuild, but just didn't add on any gas, kept his probe count very low, and could not transition into the necessary carriers that he needed to fight against the ground forces. And HamburgerSasu, there's just too many tanks and too many little bottlenecks here in this base that Terror could just never walk through. For example, this wall of factories is just so functional, so great, so useful. Anyway, we'll load up into game number 6. And game number 6 is, you'll probably be surprised, but game number 6 is a Terran versus Terran. Some good old mirror matchup. One of the rarest mirror matchups you'll ever see on fastest map. Aside from Zerg versus Zerg. Actually, I think Zerg versus Zerg and Terran versus Terran are about equally rare, because nobody wants to play it. People do like to play Protoss versus Protoss because it's less lame, depending on your perspective of playing campy mass cannon Protoss against campy mass cannon Protoss. Just kind of keeps dropping shuttle storms on each other. But it's not as lame and boring as Terran versus Terran. Or that's the opinion of most people. I find Terran versus Terran quite exciting, because it's a very technical matchup where you have to do a lot of thinking, a lot of strategical moves. But I'll admit, it feels like a long stalemate, because both players, once they have tanks, or even once they have bunkers, Marines can't fight into bunkers, tanks cannot fight into tanks, then you get battlecruisers or raids, maybe you get a different kind of situation with ghosts or more tanks and tank drops and all kinds of stuff. It's kind of, it can be anything really. HamburgerSasu starts off with a mech build. Depot and gas at the same time, then a barrack. Once the barrack finishes, he's going to make 2 factories. Started with an early scout, and Terror is going for 3 barrack build. He's going for bio. Both players, I assume, know that it's Terran versus Terran. So that's, it's interesting that they picked Terran versus Terran for this one. Maybe it was Terran versus random, I have no idea. Because it does look like HamburgerSasu knows more about the matchup in this specific case, in the sense that he knows what the matchup is. And it looks like Terror does not know what the matchup is, because this is a Terran versus Zerg / Terran versus Protoss opening. And HamburgerSasu started with a TVT opening, which leads me to believe that it was a Terran versus random. But anyway, regardless of that, HamburgerSasu found Terror. Terror finishing up his Marines. 2 factories have started for HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu pulling his SV back to his choke. Gonna build a bunker there because he doesn't want those pesky Marines to enter his base and deal damage. There is the depot, no bunker. There is the bunker. Single Marine should be enough to keep those Marines at bay. Gonna have to buy himself time for vultures or perhaps for tanks, whichever he decides to go for first. Marine is gonna find HamburgerSasu's location, but the bunker will finish just in time, so the Marine will enter it. 2 Marines there, keeping the Marine away. Bunker finishes, which means Terror is now stuck in a temporary stalemate situation where he cannot, and I cannot stress this enough, where he cannot do anything but wait for his tanks to finish. Or maybe he's gonna go for stim and medics and just try to power his way through. But it's gonna be pretty hard because this bunker can't get repaired. There's no SFV in the vicinity though. So I do think Terror is gonna try to force it. But the vultures do amazing against Marines, and you can just pop down a couple of mines right here in this area. Vulture got out. Vulture's gonna run for the base. Doesn't look like Terror will catch the Vulture. Vulture makes it in. Vulture does not get blocked by the medics. Great attempt by Terror to try to block it with the medics. Vulture takes down a single Marine. Great micro from HamburgerSasu trying to go for the SCVs. Goes for a Marine instead. It knows it's boxed in, but it's gonna try to get in there regardless. More damage, it comes down. And it just ends up scouting, gets a shot off on an SCV. Makes its way out. Gonna try to snipe this SCV there as well. No, it's just gonna try to run out, but it gets caught by more Marines and eventually dies. So 2 Marines and an SCV taken down by the Vulture. Worth it. It's 150 minerals for 75 minerals. Tank here is finished as well. Terror is gonna try to just brute force his way in. But more Vultures are on the way. Siege mode has finished for HamburgerSasu, I assume. He's now going for speed on those Vultures. He will manage to take down this bunker there. He might actually be able to take down the tank as well, but the Vulture's taking down a lot of those Marines very quickly and easily. And that's pretty much a failed fight from Terror there, although he manages to turn it around. Repair on the tank, not enough. Vultures don't do that great against Marine Medic. But the SCVs there in the mix take down the Marines, but it is painful for HamburgerSasu to have his Marines, have his SCVs there in the fight, because he's gonna lose those SCVs, he's gonna lose precious mining time, and Terror is gonna push himself deeper into HamburgerSasu's base. Took down the depot, took down the bunker, took down a couple of Vultures and SCVs, but Terror has also lost a lot of his units, and he's still gonna stick to making mass Marines there. Factories eventually did start, but 6 barracks, huge Marine masses on the way. He's got his Marine range finished as well. HamburgerSasu just gonna throw down another bunker and gonna get more tanks and Vultures into the mix here. And once there's enough tanks, or too many tanks and Vultures here in the mix, you can keep this mass from Terror away without much effort. You can even just try to micro them down. And Terror goes for the fight. Takes down a couple of Vultures, but most of the Marines go down to the splash damage from the tanks and plus damage from the Vultures. HamburgerSasu calls out the BM. Tank gets repaired, and the entire mass that Terror had is gone. Terror electing to go for the mass Marines winds up backfiring big time, because now his entire front here is exposed to Vultures and tanks. Tanks moving up, Vultures trying to micro, but the Stim Marines will be able to catch and deal some damage on those Vultures if they do get into range. So HamburgerSasu pulls back, plants down some mines. Marines are able of taking down mines before they explode, because there's so many Marines dealing damage. So all the mines go down without taking a single Marine with them. Factories have finally finished for Terror, but HamburgerSasu is still only on 3 factories. A 4th one is being added on there as well. Mining from 2 gas, he's behind. 8 SCVs on Terror, because Terror managed to force HamburgerSasu to pull his SCVs off of his minerals and even take a couple of them down with those same Marines that I was criticizing just a little bit ago. So it did yield some results, but now it's also backfiring because HamburgerSasu is just running circles over the map, makes his way into Terror's base, plants some mines in the front there, doesn't take down a tank. It's actually quite amazing. Marines almost go into range of the mine, but the mine does not explode, stays out of the range, doesn't get triggered. It might get triggered sometime soon though, but Terror now decides to go for the counterattack because he knows HamburgerSasu lost a lot of his vultures there. But he does have 4 tanks in the bunker and a couple of vultures here in the front. He stims himself, and then game immediately goes bad because he immediately loses 2 Marines to the siege tanks. Game is looking very dire for both players in a sense. Terror is bigger, but not really capable of pushing this in because there's 5 siege tanks there in the mix. Marines are absolute trash against siege tanks and vultures. And he's still making Marines. And as I said, he is bigger in both economy and mass. But it doesn't mean his forces are... Oh, HamburgerSasu is being so greedy. HamburgerSasu decided to pull up his tanks, and he winds up losing 2 tanks. Even a 3rd tank is going to go down there. And HamburgerSasu is going to even lose most of the vultures there. Questionable move from HamburgerSasu, and I actually think HamburgerSasu is now going to die. HamburgerSasu just threw the game. The game is now definitely in favor of Terror because Terror can now stim his Marines in, move those tanks up while those Marines are taking the damage from those tanks, move his Marines and his tanks in, and he's just doing as I mentioned, and he took down the siege tanks. HamburgerSasu now planting mines all over his base, Terror pushing in deeper. Terror has managed to get control over the front side of HamburgerSasu's base. Now going to take down those fragments, siege tanks sieging up in the back, but he's only got 2 machine shops, so he can only make 2 siege tanks at a time. Vultures now finishing up as well, Fortress moving to the back of those tanks. HamburgerSasu, Terror knows he's won, and he's now spamming the BM. HamburgerSasu pulls off his SCVs, and the game is completely over. One last ditch attack from HamburgerSasu, one last effort, but those SCVs are just gonna get stimmed down by the Marines, and HamburgerSasu doesn't call the GG, leaves the game. Terror comes out on top. Terror wins the series 4-2, and that was a thrown game. That was like one of the biggest throws I've ever seen in my life. Why would you sacrifice your tank that were your main defensive component in staying alive? Why would you sacrifice them? Everything was looking so well for HamburgerSasu. He even had more command centers than Terror. He just had to buy himself some time, get his economy rolling, get a couple of starports up, and he could probably have won in the late game. But he decides to throw the game. Terror immediately capitalizes on HamburgerSasu's mistake and pushes for the win with his Marines and his tanks. His Marines wind up being the deciding factor in the fact that they could stim in there, take down the tanks, like with a very quick move that he wouldn't have been able to make with more tanks or more vultures. Yeah, sometimes things don't go as you expect them to go. In this case, it was a player error. If things had played out perfectly, I could see HamburgerSasu taking home this game as a win. But it was not to be. Not meant to be. So just to recap, 4 wins for Terror, 2 wins for HamburgerSasu, aka Barcode Q. Terror takes home the series win. And that's it for this series. Terror wins, HamburgerSasu loses, and I hope to see you return to my channel in the near future. So I'll be uploading more games. Goodbye, and have a good day.